It's opening itself.
Yeah, it's like some automatic.
Just a little bit. Yeah, I guess that door over there has an automatic open sensor like the grocery store, and so it's going to keep opening for all of us. Representative Moss is afraid of ghosts, and so he wanted to make sure that that's the cause of it before we deal with anything else. So, ready? Okay. Call this meeting to order. This is the Revitalization Zone Committee. I'm Chairman Dan McKay with my co-chair, Representative Jefferson Moss. Our first item of business is to have a brief introduction by everyone, and by brief I just mean just that. So let's keep it brief and start over there with Mr. Pierpont.
John Pierpont,
Wait,
Governor.
I don't know if I've got you yet. Yep. Hold on. I'll turn on all the mics in your area, and then eventually we'll be the right one. Okay, go ahead.
John Pierpont, Governor Cox's Chief of Staff.
Thank you.
Kurt Collimore, Utah State Senate.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Jeff Moss, Utah House.
Did I get the right one?
Yep. John Hawkins, Utah House.
Okay, thank you. And we have our illustrious staff here as well, including many including many members of the public who are interested as well. Grateful to have everyone here. For that purpose, we're going to move on to item number 2. Alex Yannick from the Office. Yeah. Okay. The Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel will give us a brief presentation on the background on Senate Bill 272 and the process that binds this committee. Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Senator McKay mentioned, my name is Alex Yannick. I'm a policy analyst with the Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel, and providing staff support to this committee. Okay, so just real briefly, just going to touch on the bill that was passed during the 2024 session by Senator McKay and Representative Hawkins, SB 272, that set up this committee and this whole process that we're hearing about today. So SB 272 created this process for Salt Lake City to attempt to partner with a professional sports franchise owner to revitalize the downtown area surrounding the Delta Center. The bill called for them to establish a project area and a participation agreement that would guide this revitalization project. And so if the city approved the project area and the participation agreement, the bill would then authorize the city to impose a new half-cent sales tax within Salt Lake City to help fund that revitalization. And then the bill created this committee that's meeting here today at the state level, and this committee can review and approve or reject the project area and the participation agreement prior to the city imposing the sales tax. So if the committee today does approve the participation agreement and project area, the law provides for the city to have until December 31st of this year to give their final approval, city council, and impose that half-cent capital city reinvestment sales tax. And then at that point forward, the participation agreement would be in effect, and the project would proceed with the provisions that we're going to hear more about today from the city. So with that, Mr. Chair, that's just a brief overview, and open to any questions if there's any from the committee.
Okay, we'll go to the committee. We'll go to the committee. Are there questions from the committee about our purpose and process today? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that portion of the conversation and we'll move on to item number 3. We have, I believe Mayor Mendenhall is online and joining us via Zoom. Along with Mayor Mendenhall, we have representatives from the mayor's office, Smith Entertainment Group, that will join us here as part of their presentation. I think we're starting with Mayor Mendenhall. Is that right? And I left off, I also want to recognize on there, I forgot to include, not because the county's not important, it was just my fault. I left them off the list. So we'll also have, we'll include remarks from Salt Lake County, from the Salt Lake County Mayor, Jenny Wilson. With that, do we have Mayor Mendenhall? Okay, great. We'll turn the time over to you, Mayor Mendenhall.
Thank you, Senator McKay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for accommodating my virtual joining of this meeting today. I know that Salt Lake City has fantastic people in our city attorney, Katie Lewis, and our chief of staff, Rachel Otto, who are joining you in person today to give some more details on the partnership agreement. But I will introduce it by saying that this happened over the course of a true negotiation. I don't think either side feels that we got everything we wanted as a true negotiation should go, but this was negotiated in good faith between SEG and Salt Lake City and on behalf of our public in Salt Lake City. We were grateful for the legislation that, albeit under quite rushed circumstances with the acquisition of the team and the obligations that SEG has to the NHL to provide adequate facility in due time, that we had the legislation to help guide us about what the partnership agreement should include and should include on behalf of the public. The details are there before you. I can say that we feel good about this partnership agreement. And as it stands before you, we have support from our Salt Lake City Council, and hopefully we'll gain the support of this committee as well today. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, Senator McKay, but that is all for my introduction.
Hey, thank you. I think we're going to save questions. Are you available to stay online? Okay,
Yes.
Great. If there's questions or things like that from the committee as we move forward, I'd love to have you be available if that's possible. Okay, next up, I was going to have Mayor Wilson come forward and join us, and maybe at the same time we could have Mike Mon from Smith Entertainment Group come forward as well. And then waiting in the wings, we'll have Katie Lewis and Rachel Otto be ready for their presentation as well. Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Oh, there we go. All right. Well, thank you so much. I've appreciated the collaboration and conversation that's been going on over the last several months, beyond several months, around what I believe is an instrumental, vital, and exciting project for downtown Salt Lake. Now, the project, while it is a Salt Lake-centric project, definitely impacts the state and Salt Lake County because of the Salt Lake County's role in managing Visit Salt Lake, our visitor economy in the region, as well as our Salt Palace. We're also the owner and operator of the arts facilities downtown. Capitol Theater, a joint arrangement ownership with Salt Lake City for the Broadway Theater, the Eccles Theater, the Rose Wagner Theater, Capitol Theater, and then, of course, the Bravenel Hall. So with that, we're quite invested as Salt Lake County in downtown and care very much about the success of this proposal. I appreciate the city and the legislature really being first up on this conversation, and there are additional conversations about the next phase of this project. And I'll tell you, I've had time to reflect a little. There was a visionary leader, a business leader, and a newspaper publisher, Jack Gallivan, who about 50 years ago brought together many parties, Governor Cal Rampton and others. My father was involved in that, Ted Wilson, to a certain degree as the mayor of Salt Lake City. But they really did what was necessary to create a thriving visitor economy. And it was realized, the Salt Palace development. Jack Gallivan even was part of the beginning of bringing in the jazz. He understood at the time the importance that sports, entertainment, economy, arts, and convention would come together. And I find it interesting as I reflect on that time and would encourage you all to do a little research and history on this time. This is the next iteration of that vision. Just happens to be about 50 years later. And it's incumbent upon us to continue to do what we have done, work across party lines, involve the community, and invest in a solution. This isn't an easy road. This is a very complex process. It's not an inexpensive proposition, but in the end, the revenue will pay off for us all if we can solve this. We will enjoy as a community more sport. And there's nothing like sport to unite us. We've seen it with the Jazz. We've seen it with the other professional teams, our college teams, our Little League teams. We love sports. And I compliment Mike, Ryan, and the full Jazz team, and now the Utah hockey team for making what happened, what none of us believed could happen quickly, happen so quickly. We're excited about the launch this year. So I want to just touch on a few key points that matter to Salt Lake County. First, our primary objective is keep the Jazz downtown and add hockey into perpetuity downtown. That's what brought me to the table for this deal, but in the meantime, I've seen a lot of upside. So 3 points. Number 1, renovate the Salt Palace and make it better. By doing so, we're going to increase revenue, fill more hotel rooms, and enhance the visitor experience. Number 2, activate the tremendous assets in this section of downtown. There are many, but they're relatively disconnected. And Mike uses an analogy of we need to put braces on crooked teeth and create more vibrancy downtown. It's an incredible goal. I'm telling you, the restaurateurs downtown and the hoteliers I talk to are excited about the idea that you can enjoy a concert in a Bravenel Hall, have more restaurants close by, and maybe catch, an evening exhibit at Umoka. Right now, we do all of those things, but a lot of times it's not walkable down there, and people don't know about the assets. And that includes the investment in Temple Square. If you leave Temple Square, you may not know where the Delta Center is or what's happening over at Umoka. That's a design challenge, failure of the past. Well-intentioned, but it's not working. We need to fix that. And ultimately, we want a gathering place downtown. There are a few amazing pockets in Salt Lake City and within our region, but we need, as we've talked about with the Olympic Games 10 years out, to have that central area that we can come together and embrace the option and come together as a community with a lot to do when we're done with our 90-minute whatever we're celebrating. And then lastly, the preservation of Abravanel Hall. And we have a plan to do that. We want the symphony to thrive for the next 50 years and beyond. And I'm committed, as I have been from day one, to keeping the hall as is, where it is. We have a plan to do so. So with that, I would defer to you and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Mr. Mon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us here today. I want to start by just expressing incredible gratitude to Mayor Mendenhall, to the entire Salt Lake City Council, to Mayor Wilson and her entire county council, and to so many community leaders that we've had the opportunity to work with over the course of this experience. Kim Gardner Institute's Natalie Gochner, Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Alliance, UMOCA Board, the Utah Symphony and Utah Opera Board, Visit Salt Lake, the Japanese American community here in Utah, and a myriad of other community and philanthropic organizations that we've met with over the past 9 months. Of course, very grateful to the governor and state leadership, to Senate and House leadership, and especially to this group gathered here today, the Revitalization Zone Committee. Grateful for all of your leadership in all of this. Appreciate all the time, effort, and energy everyone's put into it. Look, we're all here for one reason, and that's to ensure the long-term future and viability of our central urban core of the state's central city. And as Natalie Gochner has been wonderful at reminding us, every generation has to carry the baton of city building. There is a natural draw away from an urban center, and that leaves a donut with a big hole of economic malaise right in the middle. And so this is our generation's opportunity, as Mayor Wilson just referred to carry that baton of city building to ensure that our state has a central city with a thriving urban core. And it's our opportunity right now to carry that baton and go forward. Now in Salt Lake City, we have a bunch of amazing singular assets that can't be replaced or replicated. That's an amazing symphony orchestra, a convention center that brings millions of people to our state, an NBA and now NHL franchise, and a state-of-the-art museum. Now, if a business leaves, another business can come. If a restaurant goes away, another restaurant can come take its place. But when these singular assets, if anything happens to them, there's nothing to replace it. And that's why it's so important that we take care of our singular assets, these things that are downtown right now and that have a long-term viable future there. Now at SEG, we've been emphatic and clear and consistent from the very beginning that if this development, this idea, this sports, entertainment, culture, and convention district doesn't work for all of those parties, it doesn't work for any of us. What we mean by that is that this has to be a mechanism by which we ensure the long-term future and viability of the symphony orchestra in downtown for decades to come. Same for UMOCA, same for the convention center, and of course for the sports and entertainment facilities as well with the Utah Jazz and Utah Hockey Club. But as we consider what this arts and entertainment district looks like, I want to acknowledge that while it is ultimately the county's final decision on the properties that they own and operate, we've worked tirelessly with them over the last several months, our architects and theirs, to envision different scenarios downtown. The Delta Center, so I just want to be clear on some of these things. There have been a few rumors out there. I don't know if any of you in politics have ever dealt with rumors, but I thought we'd clarify some of them. The Delta Center, renovated in its current location, would remain home to the Utah Jazz and be the home of the Utah Hockey Club. There are no two arenas. There's no new location. The Delta Center would be renovated and would be home to both the Utah Jazz and Utah Hockey Club. The mid-block, that's the area in between Delta Center and the Convention Center, Bravanel, whatnot. The mid-block would be home to entertainment, housing, hospitality, restaurants, retails, plazas, other activated spaces where families, individuals, residents, and visitors could visit downtown Salt Lake Think some of those plazas are where we could go watch the Olympics together, where we could go watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, where we could host festivals for members of our community. And then, as the mayor mentioned, SEG and the county's architects have been collaborating on plans that preserve Abravanel Hall in its current form. We're all united in our goal of preserving Abravanel Hall as is, and thanks to the creativity, determination of great architects, engineers, and planners, we're on track to do that. Again, thank you to all of you here. Thank you to the dozens of organizations and now thousands of individuals that I personally have had the opportunity to meet with, and I know many of you have as well over the past year. We're grateful to be working together to reimagine downtown Salt Lake in a way that does a number of things. One, that makes sure that we ensure greater economic opportunity for everyone in Salt Lake and the ripple effects that will have beyond. We've done that through greater job access, internship opportunities, workforce development, et cetera. Greater access to the arts. It's very important that we have that access and that we ensure, again, the long-term viability and thriving of that for years to come. And then opportunities to engage in family activities and celebrate a thriving, activated downtown core. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And now we'll have Katie Lewis and Rachel Otto come up and give a presentation on the actual participation agreement. While they're doing that, just for everyone's sake, I mentioned that I forgot the Salt Lake County Mayor earlier. I also forgot to include that after the presentation by staff, we will accept public comment. And so if there are those who would like to make their comments about the revitalization zone or any components of the plan as they've been discussed today, we'll receive those public comments. Following that public comment, we'll bring it back to committee for questions from the committee and that kind of thing about either the agreement specifically or to other stakeholders as it may require. So thank you. With that, Rachel and Katie, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Rachel Otto, Chief of Staff to Mayor Mendenhall. I'm very happy to be with you here today. Thank you for your leadership during last session on creating the framework for the city and SEG to enter into what will truly be a transformative partnership agreement for downtown. We are also incredibly grateful for Mayor Wilson's leadership and the visionary leaders that we have at Smith Entertainment Group. This has, as Mayor Mendenhall said, truly been a negotiation, and it's been a great process for us to truly understand that we all really want to see a thriving downtown. Katie Lewis will be talking through each particular of the partnership agreement. We are happy to answer any questions regarding any of those elements at any point today. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, committee. My name is Katie Lewis, and I'm the Salt Lake City Attorney. Thank you for having us here today. I'll start with a timeline since SB 272 was passed. And this was as everyone before me has said, this was a negotiated process between when the bill became effective and July 9th, when the Salt Lake City Council unanimously voted to endorse the participation agreement and the project area, which you have before you today. The city sent notice of the endorsed project area and participation agreement to the committee on August 30th, which then triggered the process where we are here today. And this process, as Mr. Yannick noted, is set forth in SB 272, in which the city in April received an application from a professional sports team franchise to begin negotiating the participation agreement and the project area. And what we are going to discuss with you today are those two endorsed documents, the project area and the participation agreement, for your consideration. So first, the endorsed project area. SB 272 sets forth some requirements for the project area, including that it must be located within Salt Lake City boundaries, no greater than 100 acres, roughly centered around a qualified stadium, which in this case is the Delta Center, and include the entire footprint of the stadium and have the boundaries be contiguous and reasonably compact. The project area that the City Council endorsed is this map, which we are showing to you today. You can see that it is roughly centered around the Delta Center, and there is some property to the east and west. I will note that the project area is approximately 100 acres, but the participation agreement identifies the Delta Center and approximately 2 blocks to the east, which will be the location of the Sports, Culture, and Entertainment District identified by Smith Entertainment Group. In addition to endorsing the project area, the Salt Lake City Council also endorsed a draft participation agreement, which you all have received with Salt Lake City's notice from August 30th. And the participation agreement has a variety of elements related to the requirements set forth in SB 272. That includes, first, a map or description of the project area, which we just showed to you, a description of other taxes or revenue available to Smith Entertainment Group. That's in section 2.2, page 3, and that identifies that it is solely the revitalization sales tax, which is the 0.5 sales tax that the law authorized the city to impose. The location of the qualified stadium, of course, is the Delta Center, and the law requires plans to be identified if the qualified stadium is to be constructed or remodeled. In this case, it'll be remodeled. And that section 3.2 on page 4 identifies certain processes that SEG must engage in prior to construction, including developing a construction budget and timetable, and identifying that the construction will be at the highest level of first-class amenities for an NBA and NHL team. The participation agreement also identifies that SEG will spend, they're estimating, an approximately $525 million on the Delta Center remodel, with the remaining approximately $375 million to be spent on the Sports, Culture, and Entertainment District. State code also required the participation agreement to include a master plan. That is on Exhibit C of the participation agreement that you have, and that includes exactly what's listed underneath that master plan line. An overview of challenges, a 30-year plan, a financial plan, a land use plan, public asset plan, public safety plan, homeless mitigation plan, transportation plan, and parking plan. The state law also requires certain statements regarding the use of the money, including that Salt Lake City cannot provide and SEG cannot receive a direct subsidy. That's in section 4.2. In addition, the maximum dollar amount that SEG can receive is identified, and that is $900 million. The agreement also identifies certain remedies for breaches of the contract, including industry standard non-relocation covenants and remedies related to other breaches. There is an acknowledgement, as required by law, that the parties are subject to the Capital City Revitalization Zone, and there are additional negotiated terms related to consideration for the public investment in this project. That's in section 3.3, pages 5 through 8. And then section 5.1 also identifies a reporting process over the 30 years of this contract for SEG in Salt Lake City. Finally, there are required conditions precedent that the state law outlined, and there are a variety of those listed in the agreement, including construction, budget, and phasing conditions precedent, bond conditions precedent, requirement that the entire district and Delta Center renovation is done within 10 years of the date of the participation agreement, and the condition precedent that SEG and the county execute a lease on or prior to July 1, 2025. Thank you, and we're happy to respond to any questions.
Okay. With that, we'll bring it to the committee for questions about the participation agreement. Are there any specific questions you guys have about participation agreement, or do you have questions about or questions to the stakeholders? Ms. Pierpont, did you have your light on? Or
It's me,
okay,
actually.
Senator Cullimore, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Katie and Rachel, for the presentation. I know this is already addressed largely in the participation agreement, and in fact, there is a homeless mitigation plan as well. Some concerns that I've heard from stakeholders and from citizens generally is just that if we're going to invest this much into downtown and revitalizing it, that there be a concerted effort to address the homelessness problems, to make people feel comfortable and safe in these areas. And I appreciate, we've been in conversations over the past couple years with the governor's office and trying to address these. But one, I would just ask you to address that a little bit more specifically. I know you already touched on it, but a little bit more specifically as the homeless mitigation plan is in here. And then two, the question is, we've got a plan for the fees that will be generated from the Salt Palace directly, and there's a number of things that could address, including some of the cultural issues and Japantown, and public safety is also there. I guess my question would be, and this is more a recommendation, not looking to modify the participation agreement today, but that we address this as plans go forward, that fee might be able to be used at the request of some of the participants in this revitalization zone for homeless mitigation efforts if it's not felt like it's being addressed adequately by the public or by some of the stakeholders within the district. So 2 questions, if you could address those.
Thank you very much, Senator. I'll start. I'll give a quick answer on your second point, and I'm sure Katie can add some additional details there. But the legislation does describe where the funds can go in the district and the uses for which they can be employed. And homelessness and public safety are 2 of those uses. And so I hope that we already have a mechanism to be able to address those things. And of course, to your first point, homelessness and crime are of primary concern to Salt Lake City, always are a primary concern to Salt Lake City, especially in our downtown core. And as we see this development take shape over the next several years, I think that you'll also see, our discussions with SEG and other downtown stakeholders evolve as more resources become available, as development happens. This is always a conversation that is both in flux, but also always progressing forward. And I just have to express a lot of gratitude to the state and to our county partners. Over the last couple of years, we've made a lot of great progress together with their help, with their leadership, in identifying, where the city's role is in homelessness and public safety, where the state and county's roles are in those big issues that matter to all of us. I think we could probably have a long policy conversation about homelessness, but we have made great progress, especially in the public safety realm. Over the past year, Salt Lake City Police Department has convened different partners, both from the state level, from the county level, down to pretrial services and other really critical functions in the county, on how we can focus a lot of resources in our downtown core. We've seen a decrease year to date in violent crime and property crime in our downtown area. We've seen a 14% decrease in violent crime in the Central Patrol area. We've seen an 11% decrease in property crime and overall crime in the downtown area year to date. But there's a lot more to do always. We absolutely acknowledge that, and we will never stop focusing on that. We do have some constraints in the system. I'm sure we could have a long policy conversation on that too, but we're grateful to Wayne Niederhauser and all the work he's done to try to secure additional winter shelter beds and additional space for year-round, non-congregate, lower barrier shelter. We have a lot to do in terms of being able to locate more permanent shelter space. We have a serious constraint in the system, and we all are, I think, trying to carry out our our roles to the fullest extent possible, acknowledging that there's more to be done. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Absolutely happy to continue having conversations with SEG and our other downtown partners. And again, just appreciate the partnership from the state and the county on both of these tough topics.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I have a couple of questions, more specifically probably for maybe for Rachel and or Mayor Wilson, or maybe Mayor Wilson and Mike Mon. I've received a lot of feedback, and I am now besties with a couple of violinists and maybe a cellist and a keyboardist, apparently now via email. There are obviously longstanding concerns, and I understand you have a plan for Bravina Hall. Maybe Mr. Mon, you can come and talk about that for just a second. You mentioned it during your comments, but I kind of want to draw an underline under this to help with some of this, at least this question, so to speak, if that's all right.
I'll go first and then kick it over to Mike. So I think one, I should point out, even prior to the opportunity of hockey presenting itself, Salt Lake County was looking at a couple of things. We were measuring future revenues, trying to determine our bonding capacity. We recognize that the west side of the Salt Palace is in need of some beautification. And we've also recognized that the mid-block area that we're now looking at was overbuilt primarily for outdoor retailers. But we're also light on a ballroom. And by shifting, doing yet another renovation of our Salt Palace, which has morphed and changed over the years to meet opportunity, we were looking at some changes to the Salt Palace with a limited amount of revenue, of course, to address that. Additionally, we were starting to look at the needs for a Bravina Hall enhancement. If you look at the county's arts portfolio, over the years, the public and the county and the state have invested in the revitalization of arts and culture downtown. And over even the past decade, we've done a tremendous amount to enhance the Capitol Theater with its additional rehearsal space there. And if any of you have been in the Capitol Theater recently, it really is a gem, and we're so proud of it. We built, along with Salt Lake City and community investment in the state, a Broadway theater. I was a little skeptical years ago because of the cost of that facility, and it has been nothing but an incredible asset to the community. And it is performing beyond plan in terms of the revenue that the city and the county are receiving from that hall. We have bonds against it still, but it really has been a boon to the community. So next up is a Bravina Hall, and we began the planning process some time ago, again, prior to even any recognition. What we do with the Bravina Hall will not be an inexpensive proposition. And as we looked at the need prior to the idea of a sports, entertainment, culture, and convention district and the expansion that we're discussing and we all believe in, we recognized it would be quite expensive to renovate. We have air conditioning connected to the Salt Palace and heating, which is failing for the broader area. The seats in the hall, as many people are aware, are the old style and hard to exit out. Years ago, when ADA standards changed, accessibility standards, the hall was not compliant, but we were able to be grandfathered in until a major renovation. So as we looked and went to bid, we looked at many design firms. We wanted one that had the specialty on acoustics and other elements. Acoustics have been a big discussion. Came back when, just like when you go out to bid on your own home remodel, the price came in, it's quite high. It exceeds $200 million. But really this opportunity that's presented today, I believe, has captured the public's imagination for the preservation of the hall. And that means we, with hopefully the state's help and other partners, can come up with that bill, the 200 million in excess to renovate that hall. We have been working on the broader plan downtown, and we need, as I mentioned earlier, the Salt Palace, and I talk about the two of them in concert because they do relate to each other. To be able to create that gathering space on the mid block and the restaurants and the vitality that we envision, we need to renovate the hall, or I'm sorry, we need to renovate the Salt Palace, and we need to rebuild. So we've been working with engineers and architects. The county has retained firms. SEG has firms, and they have collaborated together. So we are now zeroing in on a plan that will renovate the hall. We'll keep it in its current state, and additionally will meet the goals of activation and the assets in the gathering place. So I recognize both the public's questions and frustration over the time that we have since this body passed legislation and we move forward with the city piece, the 0.5. But in the meantime, the county and SEG have been working on those iterations and plans. There's still work to be done. And I would ask that you honor that time period because we only own so much land, which means we have to be creative and we have to reach beyond our borders to figure this out. Thus, the cooperative arrangement between SEG, again, on the master planning, our work to make sure that the hall thrives. And then I, in closing, if you don't mind, I've taken some time, I know, we care about the vitality of the orchestra itself, not just the building. I mean, the point is to be able to enjoy arts, culture, and our primary tenant in Abravanel Hall is the symphony. We want it to thrive for decades to come, just as the addition of Abravanel Hall 40 some odd years ago has led to an amazing asset for our community and one that we all enjoy. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mon.
Sure. I don't have a whole lot more. Your answer was comprehensive. And
Yes, it was. I wanted to try to get in a few other points.
I will just say that in building Qualtrics and other things, we often use the refrain that constraints breed creativity. And I've been incredibly impressed by the creativity of both the county, of the architects, of the engineers who look at the constraints of downtown and say, how do we do this? And how do we do it in a meaningful and effective way that still accomplishes the goals that we all have and does it in a way that allows us to preserve what makes us great while also looking forward to the future. As the mayor mentioned, there's still work to do as we iron out all of these details. I would just simply echo again, people have talked about how quick this process has gone. Speed does not mean that things cannot be deliberate. In fact, part of the constraints are not just in terms of space, but in terms of time. And that has caused a focus, a deliberate nature to these discussions and to these plans that have allowed us to look at things in a more detailed and creative way than we might have done otherwise. And so I think that's actually been a huge asset to this project. But we celebrate the idea of honoring the past while looking forward to the future as part of downtown. And much of that means how do we preserve the legacy of the hall while ensuring the future vitality of a symphony orchestra for decades to come.
Thank you. And that, I think, well, let me go to Senator Cullimore's lights blinking. So I'll go to Senator Cullimore and then add my comments. Go ahead, Senator Cullimore. Is it about this issue?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate all the comments, Mayor, Mike. I've had a lot of the same conversations that the chairs had with interested parties in Abravanel Hall, and so I appreciate the efforts that are being done, and I'm keenly interested in the preservation of the arts community in that area and maintaining the symphony. I would note that just for the public's concern that any of the county assets, including Abravanel Hall, are outside of the scope of the participation agreement, which is being contemplated today. And so these conversations are far from over, but that what I'm hearing from all parties is that there is an interest in ensuring that those organizations are adequately taken care of, and that whatever happens with the Abravanel Hall with the renovation, that not only do we have to contemplate that, but we also have to consider the viability of the symphony during that time period as well. And that is also part of the conversation, is ensuring that we maintain continuity and we maintain the viability of the symphony throughout this process. So again, just appreciate your comments.
And I add to Senator Cullimore's comments. I married the arts. I didn't grow up in them, and so as a result, I frequently get to enjoy performances at a Bravenel Hall. Unfortunately, I've been one that needs to get up during the performance and get to, the squeaky wooden chairs are not my favorite. That being said, I'm hopeful that will be part of the consideration as you look at that. And I applaud your efforts, Mayor Wilson. I know that it has been a priority since this became a project and became was on your radar. I've heard you in many occasions talk about the importance of preservation of Abravanel Hall and the importance of keeping Abravanel in its place and keeping it relevant and functioning and all of the amazing accoutrements that go with it. It's an important piece in our community, and I think everybody recognizing that on this committee, as well as in the community and in your office as well, has really helped draw a line on the desire to preserve the Abravanel Hall. And I've received a lot of public input about that concern, and so I appreciate that the plan is to preserve Abravanel Hall. And I think that plan is one that over the next year or two, as we put this whole block together, I think everyone will be more excited than they are concerned about its future. So I thank you for your efforts and appreciate SEG's acknowledgement as well as Salt Lake City's efforts in acknowledging the importance of that asset. So, do you have any other thoughts after that?
I think just to say that I think in this deal, everyone can win. I really do. I've had the opportunity in the role that I'm in to work with so many committed partners and have been very appreciative of the community comment and their voice in this process. And I want to compliment SEG and the legislature and all parties. I think everyone can win on this one. It is a game-changing initiative, pardon the pun, for us all.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question from Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm reading in the public benefit section about the lawful uses of those public benefit ticket fees, and maybe this is a question for the city. It outlines a couple family-sized and affordable housing initiatives, and then it says such other purposes as the city shall determine from time to time. Is there any indication of what those purposes might be at this point?
Thank you for that question, Representative. I will note that there are two items where the ticket fee will already be committed, and that is for public art within the district and also to support Japantown. In addition, we have listed, as you mentioned, the affordable housing and the family size initiatives. And this is a 30-year agreement, so those additional commitments beyond those four have not been identified, but we have heard that the commitment is to our downtown and to continuing to elevate the district as a first-class destination for Salt Lake City and for all of Utah.
And do we have an estimate of what those revenues might be at this point?
I don't, but go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, Representative Hawkins. We have very preliminary estimates just based on past ticket sales that look like anywhere between $2 and $4 million per year.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Might also want to, as you did, Senator Cullimore, want to make sure that the ticket fee part of it is also not part of really our participation.
Right.
We're dealing with the half-cent sales tax authorization. We do end up approving, I guess, the participation agreement as it exists. But really, the only part that we're concerned about is the implementation of the half cent. and making sure that the negotiation process that Mayor Mendenhall discussed earlier was I guess was successful, and that we were able to to achieve a place, at least in the agreement, that creates a metrics for for continued progress. I don't see any other questions. I had a couple more just myself. How does the city and SEG plan to keep this committee abreast of developments as they occur in time?
Thank you for that question, Senator. The participation agreement includes a number of reporting requirements on an annual and even a shorter basis. And SEG has also committed to hiring an employee that would be a liaison between the city and SEG as the development of the district and the remodel of the Delta Center is occurring. Salt Lake City would be happy to continue to meet with and engage with the committee on that progress on the same timeline that we have with the reporting requirements under the contract, to ensure that you all have the same information and the same engagement that we do.
Do you anticipate additional meetings at a later date that we could get those? Because I would prefer, as much as I appreciate city council meetings at the city county building, they're certainly enlightening, but potentially it would be helpful, I think, at each, as you read through the participation agreement, there's a draw that comes along with land use and planning authority. I think it'd be helpful to come back and prior to those draws and prior to those land use decisions being final, that do your best to communicate those interests. I think that'd be very helpful for the committee as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Just going through my notes here. There's and one other thing I want to underline, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more. The state isn't necessarily participating in the financing of the project, really the authorizer of the half cent and the other parts of it. And then the rest of it is a negotiation between SEG and the city. And so, in a lot of ways, we will be participating certain in supporting from an infrastructure standpoint or from other ways to continue to make this vibrant, but really appreciate the effort that's gone on behalf. I know that a lot of times staff is a thankless job, and so I just wanted to add our thank you to that, to your efforts as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that I don't see any other questions from the committee. So with that, we'll now, I've set aside 15 minutes for public comment. If we've got some that are in the room that want to, make a public comment, they'd be welcome to. Additionally, if there are people online, I've agreed that we can take some public comment online as well. I've received some emails as well that I'm going to forward to staff and include as public comment in case those people aren't able to make their comments as well. So do we have people online? Okay, we have two online. Who's the first name? Lori White. I think we have Lori White. Go ahead, Lori, if you'll turn on your, or is it Wyke? Yeah, Wyke. And if you'll do me a favor, please turn on your camera so that we can see your beautiful smile as you prepare to address the community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Wyke, and I'm a resident of Salt Lake City. I have questions regarding the newly stated plans to preserve Abravena Hall as is and on site. Can you clarify unequivocally that Abravena Hall will not be demolished and rebuilt as a different symphony hall? Is Abravena Hall no longer in the way of the planned open plaza? Can the Salt Lake County Council make an official public commitment to preserve Abravena Hall in its present form on its present site and with plans to fund or seek funding for renovations? While the process to nominate Abravena Hall to the National Register is currently in motion, being designated as a local landmark would provide strong legal protections preventing demolition. Would Salt Lake County be willing to nominate or sign off on a nomination of Abravena Hall as a local city landmark? Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I think I appreciate those comments, and I think specificity on a lot of these things as it relates to Abravanel. The mayor and others have committed to me that those plans will be public and that those considerations will be there. And to respect your request, I'm going to, as part of this committee, there will be a recommendation section that will be part of our letter that we will send as whether or not we approve this deal. And the idea is that we would include a recommendations section, and we will include recommendation for the preservation in place of Abravanel. I can also say that how and what that long-term plaza is and where it is. I think the developer, SEG, and the city are still working on it, so I don't know that there's necessarily more that they've been able to offer thus far, but I appreciate you bringing that concern and appreciate your efforts to continue to preserve Abravanel Hall. Thank you. Next up, Eric Neistel.
Hello, my name is Eric Neistel, and I have to admit my bias. I was happy to learn that there is a hockey team coming to Utah. However, for a much longer period of time, I have been an attendant and appreciator of our downtown. Just this past weekend, me and my wife enjoyed a date night in downtown and saw Jurassic Park in concert, and I was reminded how much I love attending events down here. To hear these meetings, it's interesting to hear the issues and concerns that I was not aware of, but I'm grateful for the guidance of intelligent and guided people to lead us in this renovation and this revitalization of a part of Utah that I frequent often. I've seen what can happen if growth and expansion happens without this kind of guidance, and so I'm grateful for this overarching view, vision, and plan for downtown Salt Lake and the good impact that it can have on our state, our economy, and just people like me who enjoy coming downtown for a nice night with my wife. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Aaliyah DeAngelis. Okay. Aaliyah, you're up next. Go ahead when your camera's on.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. I am Alia DeAngelis, and I'm a resident of Salt Lake City. And while I applaud the preservation of Abravanel Hall, there is a matter of public inclusion. And while it's been stated multiple times here that the public wins, we don't win. And instead, we pay when inflation is at a record high. And every city-related bill has increased by multiples during the current mayor's term. So why is Salt Lake City alone facing yet another half-cent sales increase? And if, as Mayor Wilson states, you're involving the community, why is this being rushed through without sufficient public input? Shouldn't we both put the tax proposal and the allocation of property to public vote and ensure transparency and allow the community to have a direct say in how financial burdens and the city resources are managed? So I'm wondering why this is not being put forward for a vote.
Thank you very much for your comment. I appreciate it. Ali, I like those glasses. I've never seen a square and a circle together from a frame standpoint, but somehow you pull it off. Nice work.
Thank you.
Next up, Brandy Strand. I think you'll be next.
Thank you so much. My name is Brandy Strand. I am the Executive Director for Preservation Utah. And I just wanted to come in and say thank you so much for your willingness to add the information with your memo, including that Abravanel Hall needs to be protected. This is something that the community has really rallied behind. And I think it's important that we listen to our community members when a building is so important to them. And the additional investment from both the state, city, and county can all be a benefit to that building and to the community it serves, especially as we look at the National Historic Registry and it opening up additional financial resources. And I just wanted to say thank you, Senator McKay, for adding that memo. We really appreciate it. And Preservation Utah looks forward to working with the county administration in ways that we can preserve, protect, and renovate the building for future generations.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate them. Okay. Interestingly, I got a message from Senator Weiler, and he said he wanted to make a comment, but that must have been a few minutes ago, and maybe he's found something else that he wanted to do instead. So probably an important Twitter post. Okay. With that, I'll conclude public comment. Is there anybody else in the room that wanted to add something? Oh, we had a couple that wanted to. Oh, please come forward. Go ahead. We'll let the three of you that are here in the room. I've got a couple minutes left, so if you'll come forward and just make a brief comment, and then the microphones. Just come on forward to the microphone, have a seat there, and yep. And whoever's next, come please sit next to this gentleman here. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Oscar Arvizu. My comments and concerns are about the rushed renovation zone. If you are forcing us to be investors, and in this case you will be, and gambling with our city's future, we should have a say in the planning and not be force-fed somebody else's corporate investment dream and subsidize billionaires. Right now, it's only a vague promises with very little planning. And yes, there's a lot of potential here, but we cannot leave it up to Smith's Entertainment Group to decide what should be built. The public and the city should be a partner at the table as well. We have all seen so many developments fall short from the many promises and lacking in any visual appeal besides cheap and fast development design, turning the city into a mediocre version of a child's building blocks. We should be working with developers with fresh ideas, which include future planning, preservation, and sustainability, not just sports, but art and culture as well. We still lack a world-class fine arts museum and a large green space downtown. This includes saving Bravenel Hall and the Lewis S. Hills House, aka the Hogan Hotel, just west of the Salt Palace, built in 1877. And funding for these projects, like Rio Grande Plan, that can be a major transportation asset, which this city sorely needs for everyone now and in the future, including the Olympics. These should be a major part of the new development, and the SCG should be held responsible, including heavy fines if the requirements of the city and its residents and what the residents want are not met. In other words, let's just make sure we take a deep breath before we dive in. We all have to live with the aftermath, good or bad. This project needs to be more thought out before our taxes increase and include the feedback of all invested parties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Please go ahead. And then there was one more public comment in the room. If you go
I
ahead
second his comments and also support
make
Elias.
sure, real quick, make sure you give us your name just for the public
Rod
record.
Miller, Salt Lake City, and
Thank
I
you.
second his comments, and I'd support Aaliyah's comments as well. I would like to see alternative public financing, possible state funding for the project, raise sales tax costs to the public, increasing annually due to inflation for 30 years is a regressive tax and should be replaced with alternative financing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Brett Ross, and I am with the citizen group called Via Rio Grande. We are advocating for the Rio Grande plan. I did want to address the comment made about the safety in the area. The Rio Grande plan, basically the premise of the plan is to bury underground all the railroad tracks bisecting Salt Lake City from 1300 south to 600 north and moving them back to the historic transportation corridor on 500 west. It would then reuse the old Rio Grande station as Salt Lake City Central Station. Doing that would open up close to 125 developable acres in that land that is kind of a wasteland and a transient camping ground. I think a lot of the safety issues that were talked about earlier would be mitigated if we were able to develop that 125 acres over there. The positive side of that is currently there's a $14 million tax revenue base in that area, but if developed would move to 2.4 billion. So there's a strong economic benefit to building the Rio Grande plan or moving it forward. And the last thing is, I know that we've reached out to a lot of individuals in this room just to try to let you know kind of what the Rio Grande plan is. We did present to the Salt Lake County Council on August 6th, and they sent out a press release with the heading reading, Salt Lake County Council supports proposed Rio Grande plan. And then to that, in that press release, there's a statement that says the Salt Lake County Council has voted to support the proposed Rio Grande plan, giving preliminary support for the Rio Grande plan, and encourage any transportation plans that affect Salt Lake County to include this option. I'm aware that we strongly support the Smith Entertainment Group's area. Moving the central station to the Rio Grande station would shorten the walking distance for those transient members going to the Delta Center beyond by 5 to 10 minutes, which would be a positive for the area. We also know that a lot of transportation issues will happen in this redevelopment zone with tracks, front runner, and burying the road actually in the area. So we would want to be considered and included in those discussions, and we'd love to reach out. We'd love you to reach out to us. We can be reached at info@riograndeplan.com. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that's all the public comment in the room. I did have one more person asked to speak online, and I'm happy to take that one last comment for their benefit. So. Go ahead and all I have is JOHSR002 iPhone 2. That's the most boomer username I've seen in a while. I just say because I think mine is exactly the same, but it's a 3. So if you could, we'll enable yours, and if you'll turn your camera and be prepared to speak, go ahead. Make sure you give us your name.
Hello, my name is Scott Johnson. And
thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that we hear a lot about our state legislature not wanting to bring California to Utah, but I note the hypocrisy where this sales tax will increase Salt Lake's sales tax to a rate where it exceeds cities such as Fresno, Anaheim, and San Diego, and puts it very close to San Francisco. So there's that, number one. Number two, I note that the most recent stadium in the NHL, the home of the Kraken, Climate Pledge Arena, was built with no public financing, as well as the NBA's most recent arena, the Intuit Dome. And I think these blocks should be opened up for competitive bidding. No one seems to mention, but we're all familiar with the phrase "too big to fail," and these blocks have a neighbor that this will not fail. If the city council votes no on the tax increase, I'm sure that developers will be happy to come and build in blocks next to a top 5 state tourist attraction, and we can get a much better deal than California level sales taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes public comment. We'll bring it back now to the committee for action on the participation agreement. Representative Hawkins.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the project area and participation agreement with the caveat that the city, county, and SEG be mindful of the consideration raised by the committee today.
Okay. Yeah, we've mentioned a number of concerns and issues, and I think we've brought all of them forward. Your motion is to approve the participation agreement. Is there any comments from the committee on that motion? Oh, sorry, and the project area as well. That's for both of those things. Seeing no discussion of that motion, I will place that for the committee. All in favor of approving the project area and the participation agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously as before us. I'll just close by thanking everyone for their hard work on this, on the behalf of this urban project. When I was first approached about this idea, I did not think that it was a reality that NHL was going to come to Utah in January. I have been thoroughly surprised and pleased This morning I read on ESPN, the commissioner's office in the NHL has talked about the attributes and strength that SEG and Salt Lake City and the state met from these commitments that we have worked hard to try and achieve. The important measures that we are really laying the groundwork for and continue to be part of. I just ask that we continue this path forward and everyone stays, anxiously engaged in pushing this forward. And I know that any member of this committee, as well as the president and the speaker, are more than happy to be engaged should there be any other issues that come up. And I will add a placeholder as well, that this committee was also tasked with looking at, criminal behavior and its enforcement in Salt Lake City as it relates especially to the district attorney's office. And we are not considering that at this time, but we'll be meeting at a later date to review information and get a report on that progress, as well as look at further actions and ways that the legislature can support Salt Lake County's efforts to continue to clean up and improve our living environment. With that, I'll entertain one last motion from Mr. Pierpont, who never gets to make these motions. The motion is to adjourn by Mr. Pierpont. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you.